And all of the things that I don't know about this company, I have certainly either tried to make up with conviction or recognizing that you have to say, I don't know when I don't know, and make sure that you surround yourself with smarter people, certainly for a pivot as drastic as this one. And I still think that there's a lot of misunderstanding that I am actually running this company rather than just the spokesperson for it, because I was a spokesperson for my whole life for all sorts of brands that I believed in. So why wouldn't that be the case here?
Sure.
It was a question of not wanting to be considered hired talent. It was a question of wanting to be perceived as somebody who owns something. And the driving force behind this is mission driven, not monetarily driven. And even though we sell products, there's a list of reasons why I do that, which I'm happy to get to, but I feel like I've just been talking and talking.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that you said that I find interesting, because in the work that I've done in working with entrepreneurs, in working with women who are fulfilling some sort of dream with whatever the venture, it can be, again, I've said this time and time again, writing a book, launching their own platform of some sort of content, as well as for-profit businesses and nonprofit. Um, the same thing that you said about clothing, I have found to be the case, or about style, I should say, with entrepreneurship, that often it's a vehicle for getting to know oneself, for getting to
Mm,
realize oneself. And it's interesting to me that you're coming at it from that lens. And yet it'll be interesting to fast forward 5 years from now and talk to you again about what this vehicle did for you. Now, as a product, it's going to do so much for so many women, and for many of the reasons that you've already mentioned, like the fact that
mm,
there's even voice given to this, the fact that you're behind that voice, the fact that you're choosing to put yourself in a situation where you've pivoted from being one thing into another thing. And you've said, this is exactly the time in life when I should do this. Given the subject matter, that's a
mm,
natural sort of fit. But also, I would say outside of that, that you recognized in yourself, there's something more here. Your necklace representing that. There's Stacy and there's Stacy. There's former
mm-hmm.
Stacy and there's future Stacy. And then there's the Stacy that has a story to tell, and in telling that story becomes an advocate for others. But more than that, becomes somebody who is behind the scenes, building the product, testing the product, understanding what the market needs and wants, probably needs more than wants, because I think
Mm.
we don't even know what we don't know, right?
We don't
This
know
is
what we
a
don't
new
know.
frontier.
Right. And also, look, there it's very funny because I have friends who are like, you went from something so glamorous to something so icky, like, or unsexy. And first of all, I'm like, being sexy was never actually a priority for me, but it certainly isn't now. And that kind of objectification, when I think about women thinking about this topic, makes me absolutely insane. But you're absolutely right in terms of this idea that, you know, again, right? There is the former Stacy and all of the things about her that I still believe to be true about current Stacy. Then I take those with me. But there are parts of yourself that kind of die off along the way. Or,
Mm,
in other words, there are parts of yourself that are constantly having rebirths. And this idea that we have to be static, that we can't actually understand the evolution that we have at every stage of life, really holds us back from being the most vibrant, interesting version of the ourself that we could be now. And I think that a lot of women always, I hear this a lot, think that it's too late. It's too late. Well, I would say that we're true. If you had to retire at 65, if you were mandatory retirement, and you go and live in Florida and play shuffleboard until you die, like that was the old way. That's how we
yeah.
thought about our trajectory in life, right? You went to school, maybe you got married, maybe had some kids, you got a good job, then you got a better job, then you get a corner office, then you move to Florida and you die. Like that doesn't exist for us anymore. There is no linear path. It's not just a winding road. There are hard rights and hard lefts, and
Yeah.
we have so many more options than we ever thought were possible for us. And I do think that multi-generational mentorship is really important here, because I felt an incredible amount of permission to talk about things that are hard and painful and scary and icky, because I see younger generations doing it with no stigma attached whatsoever. And
Yeah.
that's who we need to be learning from. I am not just building a company for Gen X and baby boomers, right? I know for a fact that there is an internalized shame around menopause for them. I have friends who are like, I'm not in menopause, even if they are, like, they just don't want to admit to it, right? I'm like, it's not a bad word. And it doesn't mean anything other than you are going through a natural process. And this is a new opportunity for a new iteration of yourself. And that future self is still going to have parts of your current self and part of your past self, but you cannot let go and be, become who you want to be or who you are on a trajectory to become without saying goodbye to things about your past. It's
Yeah.
just it's psychologically, physiologically impossible.
I've heard this thing before where somebody says, imagine yourself on a ladder, and if you're trying to take your past self with you,
Mm,
it's likely to pull you off the ladder. As much as
mm,
you're trying to bring it up to you, the reality is it will weigh you down, and that's exactly what you're describing.
right,
That you're
exactly. I
letting
mean,
go, shedding this.
yeah, because I think that's exactly the point. It's a great metaphor because the idea is, look, it's going to be a lot harder to get up anything, a ladder, a rock, a mountain, if you are carrying things that you don't need to carry.
Yeah.
You need, and I say this, I want to be careful. I don't know what you need. Okay.
Yeah.
What I know that I needed, I want to rephrase that, right? What I know that I needed was a way to say goodbye without pain to what was no longer mine to have. And there
Mm.
is a grieving process around that. And certainly there is a grieving process in menopause around a lot of things, right? Around the body that all of a sudden doesn't look the way that it used to, no matter how hard you try. Um, there are difficulties, obviously, with mood, sleep, night sweats, hot flashes. I mean, I had all of it. The brain fog I still have. All of these things can make you feel so uncomfortable and disrupt the quality of your life so much that it is very hard to see the positive. It is very hard to kind of remain in a place of self confidence when physiologically and culturally everything is doing what it can to break you down. Right.
Yeah.
So, this idea that you do have to have a grieving process and you do have to say goodbye before this next iteration of yourself, right? That's what rebirth is. It's not a painless process.